All right, good evening, everyone. I have 6 o'clock here on my time, so I think we'll start. I would like to thank you for being here with us tonight for the late French immersion information session. As I mentioned briefly earlier, I am recording to be able to share this presentation with other family members that aren't able to be here with us tonight in case they have any questions as well. My name is Jessica Hinton, and I'm one of the French consultants for our region here in Chignecto Central Regional Center for Education. And I will stop the recording after my presentation and open up the floor for some questions, as I'm sure that you have several. So thank you again for being here tonight, and we'll get going with the presentation. Just bear with me. I'm having oh, there we go. Thank you. So before we begin with the specifics about the late French immersion program offered at Redcliffe, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of CCRCE's optional French programs. So we'll talk about French immersion and integrated French. And so just to start off, well, I'll let you know that registration is now open for the optional French programs, as I'm sure that you've heard and seen the information come home from the schools. So other than the optional French programs, we do have core French, which is a compulsory course for all students in Nova Scotia from grades 4 to 9 in the public school program. So students develop their French oral, reading, and writing skills, and they participate in a variety of French literacy-based learning opportunities for approximately 10% of their instruction time. In addition to the core French program, we also offer early French immersion, late French immersion, and integrated French. So French immersion and integrated French are optional French programs designed for students whose first language is not French or have little or no knowledge of French. Parents and guardians are required to make a long-term commitment to these programs because what happens is that staffing can be affected, and staffing is based on the number of students. Therefore, if students withdraw from the program, it can have a negative effect on all students that are currently enrolled. The minimum enrollment for a program is 20 students, and the class caps, which is a maximum of students per class, differs at different grade levels. So programs begin in primary, grade 4 and grade 7, with the intent of continuing until grade 12. If any class dips below 15 students and a combined class is not possible, the class may be discontinued. I haven't seen this ever happen in our region, but we do mention it just so everybody is aware. So parents and guardians would be informed if ever this were to happen and included in the conversations. So at the senior high level, course offerings in French will also depend on student enrollments. So some of our bigger high schools are able to offer some courses that differ than some other high schools in the area, just based on the number of students that are taking certain classes. The availability of qualified teaching staff will also be a factor in deciding which programs or courses will be available. So at CEC, for example, some of our science courses are offered in French, whereas some of our other classes that we may not be able to find a teacher for may be offered in English. Research shows that there are a number of factors which influence language acquisition. So language will develop at different rates. Progress is as individual as is each child. I know I have 2 boys myself, and they learn differently and at different rates, depending on what it is that they are learning. So students will develop at different rates depending on their aptitude, work habits, motivation, and organization. And as a parent, it's very important to be aware of that and to be patient and just support them the best that you possibly can at home. Parents and guardians are responsible for transportation if the student is not already attending the school where a program is being offered. So that means that if the student is outside of the catchment area, has a different home school, then the parents would be responsible for driving that child, say, to an immersion program that's offered in a different region. And again, if you have any questions specific to these points, we'll be able to have further discussion at the end of the presentation. So we'll talk a little bit about the optional French program. So the early French immersion has a primary entry, and the majority of the instructional time in French is 90% from primary to grade 6, 70 to 75% grades 7 to 9, and then 38 to 43% 10 to 12. And the students need 9 French immersion credits in order to receive the French immersion certificate. There's French language arts 10, 11, and 12, plus 6 other credits. So those could be sciences or math, a variety of different classes depending on the school. And the locations where this program is offered, there's A.G. Bailey in the Celtic area, Truro Elementary, which then the students go on to Truro Junior and CEC, in the Cobequid family. In Chignecto, it starts at Spring Street Academy, Cumberland North, E.B. Chandler, and then Amherst Regional High School. And then in the Nova family, it starts at Elmsdale District, and then the students go to Riverside and Hants East Rural High for 9 to 12. We also have Middle French Immersion, which is only offered in the Celtic family. And so I won't spend too much time discussing that one. CCRCE optional French programs continue. So late French Immersion, which is the reason why we're all together here tonight. So we have a grade 7 entry point for this one. So the early French Immersion was in primary. Oh, I'm just going to ask everyone to turn their mics off.
Sure.
Thank you. So the Cobequid family is the only area where late French immersion is offered. So instructional time in French is approximately 70 to 80% of the learning time. And the classes are French language arts, math, social studies, science, PDR, and 10% of their instructional time is in English language arts. Then they continue to grade 10 to 12. Instructional time in French is approximately 38 to 43% of learning time. 9 French immersion credits are required in order to receive the late French immersion certificate, similar to the early French immersion program. And the only, as I mentioned earlier, the only location where it's offered is Redcliffe Middle School, and then going on to Bible Hill Junior High and finishing at CEC. The other option that has a grade 7 entry point is integrated French. And in integrated French, the instructional time in French is approximately 30% of learning time. So you'll see it's much less than the late immersion. And the courses in French are French language arts, social studies, and then they also have English language arts at 10%. So that they have 2 classes in French, social studies and French language arts. Then the students continue on grade 10 to 12. They have 6 credits are required in order to receive that French certificate. And there's FLA 10 for the French language arts 10, 11, and 12, plus 3 other integrated French certificates. Credits, sorry. And the location, again, we have integrated French programs available in all families. In the Cobequid area, we have Truro Junior High, Central Colchester Junior High, Redcliffe Middle School, going on to Bible Hill Junior High, as I mentioned earlier, and then CEC. So late French immersion and integrated French. Late French immersion is a regional program open to all grade 6 students in our region. It's only offered at Redcliffe Middle School. However, students from all the other schools are able to apply for this program as well, so it's regional. Integrated French is offered at certain sites in the region only. Both programs and instructional strategies are really designed to meet the needs of students entering the program, and the core French classes that they've been taking since grade 4 have really helped prepare students for the optional programs once they start in grade 7. Students follow the same program curriculum offered in English from the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. Students' knowledge and skills transfer from French to English. And so they're building on, they've already learned English literacy skills from this point on, and they transfer to French and vice versa. So they're going to be learning some new skills in French that will also help support their English. We encourage that students make a well-informed decision about going into late French immersion or integrated French. And French program staff will be sharing information with grade 6 classes about their options going into grade 7. So we do have something prepared for all the grade 6 classes. We have a little video that Redcliffe is making actually as we speak, and we will be showing it to all the grade 6 students in our region, and we'll either be coming in person or virtually to have a question and answer period with them afterwards. So the students will also get the information. A big question that we often hear is, what if my child has learning difficulties? And so optional French programs are open and inclusive of all learners. So various learning abilities are seen in French programs as they are seen in regular programs. So there's been a lot of research done on optional French programs, and not just French, but language learners in general. And so we know a lot more today than we did 50 years ago. So if your child does have difficulties, as you would with any program, you contact the teacher and the school, and they will do the best that they can to support the child in any capacity. The school teams, parents, ourselves are often included in these conversations, and we'll explore all options possible to support the child in their programming, as is the case for all students in all programs. Children in French immersion are eligible to receive all supports offered at their school. However, some of these supports may only be offered in English. So there's a pretty big list of supports offered in all of our schools, and our students in French programs are able to access them just like they would if they were in English programs as well. Every school is a bit different in the way they offer things. So, but I do believe that Mr. Hazelton's here, so he'll be able to answer some questions specific to that if we have any after. So all available means of supporting the student within the program will be exhausted before making the decision to transfer the student from the immersion program. So we will really try to put everything in place for that student before removing them from the program. If it does occur, it's crucial to plan the transition carefully in order to minimize any negative effects. And so depending on the situation, this could occur at the end of a term or a year. It's a natural entry or exit point. If the home school is different than where the program is being offered, the student will return to that school unless the parent guardian initiates a transfer and is approved by the family of school supervisors. So if your home school is different than the one where the program is being offered, and it is possible that students have had to go back to their school, but again, it's not very as common. And we're going to take time to talk a little bit about the myths that that exist for language learners, just because we were talking about students with difficulties. And so we wanted to take time to try and dispel some of the myths that are out there currently. So myth one, and I'm sure that you've heard some of these out in the community or growing up yourselves. So learners should focus on first language literacy skills before learning a second language. So what the research tells us is that there's an initial lag there, but students catch up very quickly to their peers in English programs and often outperforming them. There are many cases of children who have developed more than 2 languages from birth. Starting point makes no long-term difference in oral or writing skills. So there's no negative effects on your first language when you learn a second language. In fact, there's research that show that it has a positive effect. And students proficient in more than one language have stronger overall skills. So the second myth that we hear quite often, second language programs may not be suitable for learners with low academic ability and learners from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. So students with lower academic abilities will face the same challenges in English programs, and the same is similar with respect to the socioeconomic status. So often it doesn't matter what language the child is learning or what program they're in. We'll notice the same things. The third myth, second language programs may not be suitable for learners with learning difficulties or learning disabilities. I mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, but just to share a little bit about what the research shows. So there's no evidence that learning difficulties in the first language will impede skill development in the second language. And students with lower academic abilities will face the same challenges in English programs. So if a child has a difficulty with reading and writing, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't go and learn a second language. If they want to learn the second language, they may have the same challenges in both, but generally the same tools that they have been using for English learning, they can use in French as well. Google Read and Write, for example, is something that some of our students with learning disabilities will use, and they're very comfortable with it in one language, and it transfers to the next. Learners, the last myth, learners with multiple languages at once are at risk. So there's evidence that studying multiple languages increases one's skill with executive functioning, which governs decision-making in the brain. So learning languages really affects different parts of the brain in many different ways. And there's evidence that students who are adding another language beyond the one that they are learning as a second language outperform monolingual students. So if at any point you have any questions or any personal questions about your children that you would like to have a discussion about, don't hesitate. That's what we're here for. So we'll take a minute to talk about the procedures to actually apply for the program. So they're all housed on the same place on the website, integrated, late, middle, early. The deadline is February 19th, 2021. So you just follow the website. The children did receive a postcard sent home, but everything is also available on the CCRCE website. And you will receive an email following the deadline confirming that we did receive your application. I do believe once you finish the application process, it says thank you for submitting your application, but you will receive something and in the form of an email confirming that that everything has closed and that we received your application. If for any reason you're having a hard time with the application process or just want to confirm that everything worked, don't hesitate to call or contact us at any time. Again, our information is all on the website as well. Here is a picture of the front and the back of the postcard that was sent home. If anybody needs any extra copies, just let me know and we will have some sent out. So once everything is done after February 18th, so we will review the applications to determine the number of applicants for all of the programs. The information is then given to the programs coordinator, and they have discussions with the supervisors and directors to determine staffing. And so that might look like one school has a 1 class, sometimes it's 1.5, sometimes it's 2. And sometimes what also ends up happening is that if there are more applicants and spaces available, a public random draw may happen. We do everything we can to possibly avoid that. We will have split classes if we have to have split classes, but it does happen sometimes where we do have to do draws. And if that's the case, then we would verify which schools are represented among the applicants, because there are different, the children are coming from different schools, and each school would have a certain number of seats available. The parents would be contacted. It would be a public draw. Everybody would be able to come and be a part of the draw. And what would happen is then we would establish a wait list. So we did have a draw at one of our early immersion sites last year for last year's program starting this September. There were 3 on the wait list, and all 3 ended up getting in by the end of September, thankfully. So generally that it does work out, and we will do everything we can to avoid a draw. So the applications received after the deadline will be dated as they come in. So if somebody did miss the February 19th deadline, then we keep a list of applicants after. The priority will be given to the ones that were received on time, but often those on the wait list are able to enter the programs as well. So if you have any other questions, again, don't hesitate to contact us at any time. That's what we're here for. The schools are also excellent at answering any questions that you may have about anything. So please don't hesitate, no matter what it is. No question is too silly.